Alright class, this lesson is on transformations. This is actually going to probably cover both days. So you guys did a lot of this last year, so this should be relatively familiar to you guys. But just to remember, whenever you're dealing with the stuff inside with the x, that's the horizontal direction. And then the stuff outside is the y or the vertical direction. And when you list the transformations in order, you start from the inside left to right, because we'll have it in factored form, and then the outside left to right. So the first thing I would say is this thing here is it shifts right 1. And remember, it's the opposite sign that you would think when you're dealing with the x. Then this -1 on the outside reflects over the x-axis. And then this is the vertical shift. Shift up 1. And remember, the sign is the same here for vertical shift. So vertical stuff, the sign, it means the same thing. For horizontal shift, you take the opposite sign. Alright, so let's do that again. Let's start inside. So we look first with stuff with the x, and there's a +4, but we take the opposite, so we're going to shift left 4. Then you work from left to right on the outside of the function. We have a stretch, and I should say vertical stretch, by a factor of 3, which means you multiply the y values by 3. And then finally, we have a shift 5 down, or down 5. I don't know why I said it that way. Alright, so you have to be careful here because when you look at this, you have to think this x squared is still the parent function. So there's nothing going on inside with the x squared. So really we're not doing anything in the horizontal direction here. We're only working vertical. So I'm going to work with this first. That thing reflects again over the x-axis. And since we're multiplying by 1/2, it compresses vertically by 1/2. And then finally we shift it 6 up, or up 6. Okay? So kind of remember, hopefully you guys remember that, like I said, this should be review. That's why I'm kind of just doing it. So now the next section, we're doing the same thing, but we have a point. So we have to figure out what this transformation will do to the point. So if you look, we have the point -1, 5, and it says we're going to shift that point down 1. That means you're in the y, you're taking the y and subtracting 1. So then you get the point -1, 4. In the x direction, if we're shifting left 2, we're shifting it by subtracting 2 from the x, and we are vertical shift up 2, we're adding 2 to the y. So if I do -1 minus 2, I get -3. If I do 5 plus 2, I get 7. A vertical expansion by a factor of 2 means multiply the y by 2. So that becomes -1, 10. Okay, so you kind of have to just read through the problems and figure out what you're going to do to your point, and then just do it. And then you have it. Alright, so now we're going to sketch these equations. This is an x squared graph that has a vertex that is 3 down from 0, 0, because it's shifted down 3, so 1, 2, 3. And then it should still look normal. State and plot the vertex. This is the vertex of 0, -3. Now, this one moved left 1, and it reflects. So if I go left 1, that's the vertex, and then now it's facing downward. So this x squared will look like this. And the vertex is -1, 0. So first figure out where the vertex is, okay? Absolute value function. Remember, an absolute value normally looks like this. So this one is saying that the vertex has moved up 2. And then it's still the same shape because there's nothing else happening. And so the vertex is 0, 2. This one has two things happening. It has the vertex moving 4 to the right and the vertical stretch of 2. So that means it should be twice as steep in this case. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, like I said, to show that stretch, I'm going to make it a little bit more steep. Okay? And this is a vertex of 4, 0. Alright, this vertex here is at 1, 1, and this means it reflected. So this should look like that. And finally, we have another parabola, a squared. So all that happened was that the vertex is shifted to -1, -3. So if I go to -1, -3, I'm right here. And it is still facing up though, because there's nothing, so it's just a normal quadratic. I'm going to just sketch a quadratic. Okay, so those are the sketches. Again, it's just showing you where the points go. Look for the thing inside with the X, and then outside with the Y, and then any stretches and reflects. Okay, so that's all we're going to do on the first day. The second day, we're going to do these things here. It says, write the equation of the given parent function after the following transformations. So basically, we're supposed to take this and turn it into an equation. So if it says it translates 8 units to the left and 4 up, 8 to the left means it goes inside with the square root. And if it's left, it's the opposite sign. So we go +8. Up is the same sign, so we have +4. So that's all we have to do. So now we have to follow that with these. Okay, follow the thing. So we have graph of y squared is translated 4 units to the left. So that would be x + 4 squared. Now you have to be careful. Horizontally expanded, we didn't do much with these. By a factor of 6, if it's being expanded by 6, that means you have to multiply by the reciprocal when you're doing horizontal expansion and compression. So if it's being expanded by a factor of 6, we need to multiply by 1/6. And it has to still be with this piece. So here's what we're going to do now. Y equals, we have 1/6 x + 4. Okay? Then we reflect with respect to the x-axis. That would be a negative on the outside of this. And then finally, we would tack on an 8 units down. So we have negative the 1/6, which did the horizontal expansion. And then finally, we need to go down 8. Okay? So this would be the final answer, adding everything in. Again, that one's difficult because we have a horizontal expansion, which we never did really. So, excuse me, graph of x cubed is reflected with respect to the y-axis. Now this is, again, something we haven't done, but that's putting a negative with the x. So that's inside with the x. Then we're going to vertically stretch it by a factor of 8. So that would be vertical, you just multiply. And then we go up 9. So that's just adding to the outside. Okay? So again, when you have a reflection with the y-axis, you just put the sign on the inside with the x. Okay. So now we're going to do this next one. Very similar. Translate to the right 5. That's a horizontal move. So that's inside here. And it's a -5. Reflect with respect to the y-axis. Is inside there as well. So is the horizontally expanded. So this becomes basically -1/7. Then we're vertically compressing by a half. That you use the same value for. And finally, we translate 9 units up. which is plus 9. Okay, so that's how you go the other way when you are dealing with translations and transformations. Just kind of take each piece. The hardest ones are these two. Knowing that when you are reflecting with the y-axis, it's a negative with the piece inside, and then when you're expanding, you have to do the reciprocal. Okay, and that's it, and that should be it for your test that's coming up when it's coming up. So you can prepare, start studying, and I will see you guys in class.